Australia's citizen soldiers on patrol. Continuing the tradition of the cavalrymen who first went to war at the turn of the century, the men of the CMF in all states are trained and ready to answer the call again. First, South Africa. Then again in 1914, the men of the Australian Light Horse went overseas to fight. As infantrymen, the Australians fought bravely and suffered heavily in the dark and desperate days of Gallipoli. And back in the saddle, they went on to further honors in the desert campaigns of World War I, Damascus, Gaza, the charge at Beersheba. The militia light horse was to continue in strength in the years between the two world wars. Then there was no enemy, no threat. But there was time for spit and polish and parade ground ceremony, and they were always prepared for war. On maneuvers. Maybe there were not quite 40,000 horsemen there, but the sight and sound of the cavalrymen when they charged was enough to shatter the nerve of any enemy. World War II saw the militiamen ready. Although they were still cavalry units, their horses were traded for Bren carriers and tanks. From the deserts, the troops moved nearer home to the jungles of New Guinea. Near Buna in 1942, they took their tanks in against the Japanese for the first time. War's end brought another change in the role of the CMF. The former cavalry units became armored regiments, but new equipment like the versatile amphibious ducks meant the troops were still well and truly mobile. In disastrous post-war floods, the volunteer soldiers were on the job again, with men like these from the Hunter River Lancers playing a leading role in rescue operations. Throughout the country, the men of the CMF continued their training and learned new skills. There was fighting in Korea, Malaysia, Vietnam, but no call for the armored regiments of the CMF. And now air power is another vital ally they make increasing use of. Today's citizen soldier needs to have more than the ability to fire a rifle. His mind has to be as sharp as his reflexes. It's not much more than 70 years since those horse soldiers first went to war. And what a change there's been. Weapons, strategy, technology. But some things hold true from the old days. Courage, ingenuity, comradeship. Those important characteristics that make the Australian soldier someone to look up to.
The answer to the nation's prayer for leadership. The last thing I saw as I left my hotel today to come to this great convention hall was a newspaper whose headlines on the international scene was even bigger than they were on this great convention.